Hey everyone, what's going on? Thanks for tuning in to Relevant Jukebox, and today we're going to talk about the latest album from Lingua Ignota, Sinner Get Ready. So this is the fourth full-length studio album from Kristen Hayter, aka Lingua Ignota, and her last album, Caligula, was a lot to take in. She combined classical music, neo-folk, noise, and a ton of other different various strains of extreme music together in a way that just would probably leave an impression on any type of music listener. And as soon as I heard that this album dropped, I knew right away it was going to be one of those releases that I was going to need more time with. And I was totally right, because there was not really much of anything that could have prepared me for this completely slow-burning, cerebral mindfuck of an album. I gave this thing a spin a while ago and was sort of underwhelmed by it. It definitely comes off a lot less in your face compared to Caligula, so I put the record down for like a week or two and just like didn't go back to it and decided, hey, I'm gonna try this again. And you know, for some reason it just clicked and sort of blew my mind open. And I think it was the tail end of the opening cut, the Order of Spiritual Virgins, that really stopped me in my tracks. Especially when all of those extremely loud and overbearing piano chords come in. They sound sort of like a 50-foot giant is knocking on a steel door. And there's also a voice recording that concludes this track, one of many that show up on the record that just add another layer of creepiness that got under my skin. It's tracks like this on here that really make me feel like I'm experiencing what characters in a horror movie experience, you know, one that maybe takes place down south, something, you know, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something. And if this track wasn't enough to kind of get under my skin, how about the track Many Hands? There is just an extremely noticeable, uneasy vibe that this song puts out, from the very doomy, descending chords that are just layered underneath it, to all of the extremely prickly instrumentation from these string instruments that kind of sound like a bunch of knives being sharpened, and the repetitive progression that the track takes that just builds and builds with intensity along with Kristen's vocal performance. It is just easily one of the creepiest vibes I've heard all year. And if you dig into the lyrical content that surfaces throughout the entire record and her struggles with organized religion, you'll find that equally as horrifying. Now, as horrifying as I did find this album listening experience to be, I also found it extremely beautiful on the contrast, especially in the second leg of the record, and that all kicks off with Pennsylvania Furnace, which was the lead single that promoted the record. It's a slow-churning piano ballad that was an interesting choice as the lead single, but ends up serving as almost like a segue between the really intense first three tracks and the rest of the album, and it segues perfectly. Because in this second half is really where the record's most special moments begin to reveal themselves. Like the track Sacred Liniment of Judgment, it's got this droney, neo-folk laced instrumental that really locks into my brain and captivates me and like almost leaves me like staring out into the distance at times when it's on. And there are these piano chords that are layered underneath this track that carry the whole thing that are really noticeable and stick out to me, and they just put out this atmosphere that is so similar to that of like the Social Network soundtrack, oddly enough. And that vibe really sticks out maybe in the latter half of the track. And all of that does carry over into the next track, The Perpetual Flame of Centralia, which again gives me more like Social Network soundtrack vibes, especially in those slow churning piano chords. And the track overall is just like so beautiful in its stillness. And we do get one more bigger instrumental build before the record concludes with the track Man Is Like a Spring Flower, which is just yet another standout track on this LP for me. It takes a very satisfying progression overall that kicks off with all of these chants from Kristen, and then this like, you know, repeated slow churning pianos. Eventually, all of this builds into this like kaleidoscopic crescendo of instrumentation that is executed flawlessly. The way that this jam all comes together with like those dissonant backing vocals and the strings and just like the overall awe-inspiring feel that it gives off is just like amazing. It's easily one of my favorite musical moments of 2021. And it has this kind of like whimsical, curious kind of feel to it, like you're in some kind of like 90s fantasy film, you know, one maybe that like Tim Burton did. But yeah, I mean, overall, I just really loved this album. The range of emotions that you experience listening to this thing is unlike anything else that you'll hear this year. I guess if I did have one small critique, it is the way that the record ties up with the concluding track and sort of leaves it feeling like a bit of an extended outro. I kind of wish the album just concluded with that voice recording of that lady talking about not being afraid of getting COVID or spreading it because she's covered in the blood of Jesus. I mean, it couldn't be more 2021, and especially after that really awesome instrumental crescendo that happened before it just feels like a concluding point, but still a very, very minor complaint. Because if you're a patient listener and you have some time set aside to give this thing a spin, I highly, highly recommend that you do. It did take a few listens for me to kind of like really sink in, but now that I finally sat with it and had my time, I do think I like it more than Caligula, actually. And with that being said, I'm feeling a 9 over here on Sinner Get Ready. So for all you collectors out there, at this point in time, we are sold out on the first round of pressings, it looks like. There were a handful of different presses that came up already. It looks like you can still get yourself a translucent red pressing and a standard black, and also a red and white Galaxy colored vinyl, which is the one I picked up. So I'm gonna have links down below to Evil Greed's website, but also to Sargent House, and I hope you can grab that before they sell out. And if you have listened to this new Lingua Ignota record already, let me know what you thought about it in the comment section down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and share, and if you want more content from me, hit that subscribe button. Peace.